Hello everyone, welcome to this new episode in which we're going to see how to create our first bicep code and how to deploy it in Azure. The first thing to do after having Visual Studio Code installed is to get the bicep extension. So click on extensions, here you write bicep, click on it and click on install. Now we open a directory, create a new file, and let's call it main.bicep, for example. The resource that we chose for you is a virtual machine with its all network dependencies. Since the virtual machine is created in a network, we will create the virtual network first. So we start with the declaration of the resource. We'll give it the name my virtual network, for example, space, and the authoring experience is helping us. Be careful, you need to choose the exact right type or you'll face troubles later on. Choose virtual network, pick the latest API version. To determine properties, we need to check the Microsoft template. You can notice the richness and diversity of properties which gave us all the flexibility to set our exact preferences according to our company's needs and policies. But in our case, we're gonna stay with the required and basic ones only. Let's start with typing the name my virtual machine. Concerning the location, I suggest using it as a global parameter, since we're going to use it multiple times. So we declare above a parameter named location1. The type is string, of course, and the value is 2s, for example. Now this is two different ways to declare your parameters, but there is a third way that we're going to see later on. An important pillar in any resource is the object properties. We have the property address space, which includes an array of strings called address prefixes. We are going to give it 10.0.0.0/16, which is, of course, the network address. Now we can create the subnet, which is considered as an array of objects. So we open the square and the curly brackets. We're going to create only one subnet called sub1, for example. The subnet properties is where we define the address prefix, which is 10.0.0.0/24. You can add other subnets if you want here, but in this case we'll stay with only one. I think this will be enough to create our virtual network. The network connection of a virtual machine is handled through network interface, which should be declared as an independent resource. If we follow the same steps based on the Microsoft documentation, we will have something like that. We choose NIC as a name, the location again, properties, IP configurations is an array of objects. We have it a name, we gave it a name and it has a properties object too, in which we'll precise first the private IP allocation method, setting it as dynamic. The public IP address is better to be created as an independent resource too. And here we set the subnet's ID by referring to the name of the virtual network, .properties.subnets. 0 refers to the first element, .id. We added the same process, the resource IP address or public IP address. The name, location, SKU, name, entire, properties, delete option, public IP address version, and public IP allocation method. Now to the virtual machine. The properties here got 4 main subjects, which are hardware profile, storage profile, OS profile, operating system profile, and finally network profile. In the hardware profile, you have to pick the VM size, which I chose standard B1S. Concerning the storage profile, you can rely on the Microsoft documentation like in here and choose the image that fits your preferences. In the OS disk section, you set the name of the disk, its type, Linux or Windows, create option, from image is good, caching option, and delete option. In the operating system profile, you can give a name to your computer, an administrator username, and a password. Talking about passwords, let's discover the third way to declare your parameters, because you obviously don't want your password visible by anyone have access to your code. So what should we do? You declare your parameter as global and you go to the file and click on right click, generate parameters file. You can of course do that to all your parameters in order to have more organization and protection of your parameters. Now in the network profile, you can define the network interface. The VM might have multiple interfaces, but that's not our case. So we give it the ID of the NIC we created and properties delete option, which determine what happened to this resource when you delete your virtual machine. Now that we finished our code, how we can deploy it in Azure? We create another file actually in the same directory. We called it deploy and give it an extension PS1. The first line in this file is connect Azure account, where we determine the ID of our tenant. Next, we gotta enter the subscription ID here. And finally, we allocate a name to our deployment. We choose the resource group name, then the path of the template and the parameters files, which is preferable to be the same. And we run the file. We waited for a while and we got the final results, the whole 4 resources created successfully. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe our channel. Goodbye.